Arc Warlock, a subclass that has had some high points, but mostly low points over Destiny 2's life cycle. But Renegades is not one of those low points. With the buff to Stormdancers Brace, as well as Bungie's attempt to bring roaming supers up to the level of burst supers, Stormcaller has probably never been better than right now. Before we get started, if you enjoyed the video or find it useful, a like and a share would be greatly appreciated, as well as hitting that subscribe button and following the Twitch channel down in the description so you can know when I go live. Now let's get back to it. Let's start with the why. Why is Stormcaller so good all of a sudden? Well, there's a few reasons. First big one is Stormdancers Brace, and the buff that it received inside of Renegades, as well as both the Arc Turret and the Arc Souls now scaling with the grenade stat, and Arc Souls working with Ashes to assets and just being counted as a grenade overall. So why Stormdancers Brace, and what was the buff that it received? The perk now reads, Stormtrance hits and final blows increase the damage it deals. Refund super energy when it ends. Ability damage, while amplified, grants bolt charge. The last bit there is what's new. Abilities granting bolt charge stacks sounds okay at first until you realize that Arc Soul is also giving bolt charge on almost every hit, alongside the Ionic Sentry naturally giving bolt charge stacks, which this exotic enhances even further. So you have effectively infinite supers, infinite bolt charge activation, and two buddies out there helping you clear the entire battlefield. You could further increase your ability uptime by running an Empowering Rift, which with the launch of Renegades now improves your ability cooldowns on top of increasing your outgoing damage, at the risk of losing your only source of healing being your Healing Rift. Now, for the question of how your subclass should look. Here's what I'm running. I'll also put a dim link down in the description for you to copy off of. Stormtrance is an obvious choice, as Stormdancers doesn't work with Chaos Reach. I'm personally running an Empowering Rift, though I don't think this choice is really make or break, so if you notice you're dying a lot more than usual, feel free to switch back to the Healing Rift. Both melee and grenade choices are up to you, but I'm running Ball Lightning and a Storm Grenade. Though, a Pulse Grenade or even a Flashbang Grenade for potential unstop stuns would be fine. For aspects, you should be running Ionic Sentry and Arc Soul. Now, why no Electrostatic Mine, you might be asking? After the buffs to all the quote buddy abilities to start scaling with the grenade stat, they've become a more valid contender for general gameplay and can tear through waves of enemies with ease. You also aren't gaining all that much from an Ionic Trace with this setup, like you would be with Geomag stabilizers, nor is becoming amplified all that difficult. So to me, giving up the Arc Soul or the Ionic Sentry just feels not worth doing. For fragments, the only ones that I consider necessary are Spark of Discharge, which while amplified will generate even more bolt charge stacks, as well as Spark of Shock, which makes it so your Arc Soul and Ionic Sentry will both now jolt targets. Otherwise, I'm running both Ions and Resistance in my final two slots. Ions will help keep your abilities topped up with almost every kill being either jolted or with bolt charge, and Resistance is just free damage resistance. Though, if you felt that these weren't needed and had a fragment you prefer, there's nothing wrong with swapping them out. The way I had this set up first was no Ions, but running Spark of Beacons so that my special weapon kills could blind enemies. I don't think that that trade was worth it. I think there is more value in Ions, but if you need more ad control, feel free. Moving on to armor mods, the only ones of note are Ashes to Assets, as your Arc Souls now activate the perk and give you more super energy, and Bolstering Detonation, which will help keep your Rift charged to keep your Arc Souls active. Everything else is up to personal preference. I personally run most builds with font mods in order to fill in some needed stats that the armor isn't covering. On the topic of stats, let's talk about where they should be with this setup. Super and Grenade are both stats to push past 100 and as close to 200 as possible. After those two comes Class. Class should be as close to 100 as possible, but definitely not a priority to push past 100, as the overshield benefit you would be getting is not worth it. Finally, I'd put the remaining points into weapons, as more weapon damage is never a bad thing, but it should not be your priority. What weapons am I pairing with this setup? For my exotic, I'm using the Praxic Blade, which enables even more bolt charge generation within the power core selection, on top of just being an absolutely fantastic exotic. For the energy slot, it's really up to you. Some good arc specials that have come out alongside Renegades, like the new Special Ammo Hand Cannon, Uncivil Discourse, or the new Rocket Pulse, Psi Eterna 4, which is, you know, a rocket pulse, so it's always an easy pick, are both going to serve you well. The rocket pulse has some fantastic synergies with this setup of having both bolt charge synergy in trickle charge and rolling storm, or potentially using blast distributor for even more grenade stat if your armor is lacking. For heavies, I ran eager edge for movement, as I pretty much always do. The new dungeon heavy machine gun is looking quite strong with trickle charge and rolling storm combo, and would fit right in with this build. Now, how do you actually use this build? It's quite simple. You use your Rift for Arc Soul, kill things till you get your Ionic Sentry charged, kill more until you have your super, then everything snowballs from there. After your super is charged the first time, you almost always have another one ready to go when you need it, and if you don't, it's easy to get another one charged quickly, so long as there are enough adds around. The downsides of this build, and the Arc subclass as a whole, is its survivability. The only source of healing is a healing Rift, which you might not even be running because of the empowering Rift buffs, but this really wasn't an issue, as your killing potential is very high, as well as almost always being in your super alongside the damage resistance that it brings. What about other exotic choices for Stormcaller? Well, Geomag stabilizers are still a solid choice ever since the buff that came in Heresy, but that build has been directly nerfed, as well as the fact that you'd have to give up either Arc Soul or Ionic Sentry to use Electrostatic Mind, which is a lot of lost damage and killing potential. There's also Vesper of Radius, which is what I used originally before moving to Stormdancers. This setup wasn't bad, but lacked the damage that Stormdancers enabled with the super, as well as how many supers you can put out. However, where the damage lacked, the Rift uptime and enemy control with the blind effect from the Rift made up for it a little bit, but not enough to actually humor running Vesper, which is a shame, as it's been one of my favorite exotics since the Arc 3.0 reworks. How does this setup hold up against the rest of the Warlock kit? Fairly well, I'd say. Currently, Prismatic Warlock is, rather unsurprisingly, still very strong, with two of the strongest builds, like the Getaway Artist Buddy build or the recently buffed Winter's Guile with Lightning Surge, being on Prismatic. There's also the recently buffed Nothing Manacles, which has turned scattered grenades into mini nukes clearing entire rooms. But I would say Stormdancers Brace holds up, or even potentially beats out Nothing Manacles right now and keeps up with Prismatic on its own. Otherwise, I think that's going to be all for today. If you enjoyed or found it helpful, a like as well as a share would go a long way to support the channel, as well as subscribing if you're new, and comment down below if I missed anything worth noting, or if you want to see a subclass or exotic fully built out in the next one. But with all that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.